Today, this event is brought to you by ICC UAE, the United Arab Emirates chapter of the World Business Organization, the ICC. And this event is brought to you by our Commission on Trade Facilitation. And our expert lineup of speakers today includes Nadia Abdulaziz, Chair of the Commission on Trade Facilitation, Manu, our moderator and also part of the leadership, Zahid, our expert guest speaker, and of course, Samir, who's also part of the leadership of the ICC UAE Commission on Trade Facilitation. Now, anti-money laundering and fighting financial crime is a global concern. And in the ICC Global Trade Finance Survey 2020, it highlighted that for SMEs looking for a trade finance, one of the biggest barriers is KYC and compliance. So on one hand, it's a barrier to trade, KYC and compliance, but on the other hand, we must implement all regulations and aim for the highest standards in fighting financial crime and compliance. But you know what? You can only take care if you are aware. So this is one of the awareness initiatives of our Commission on Trade Facilitation. So without any further ado, I will hand over to our moderator, Manu. Manu, over to you.
Thank you so much, dear Vincent, for all that you do, or you are. All our thanks to you. You are the epitome of our liveliness. The energy that you reciprocate definitely uplifts every one of us here, and especially me a lot. That's the energy I have as from you. Never stop learning, because life never stops teaching us. Well, the capacity to learn is a gift. The ability to learn is a skill, and the willingness to learn is a choice. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining and showing your willingness to learn today. It's need of the hour, the new regulation, anti-money laundering, and combating the financing of terrorism and illegal organizations. Sharing knowledge is my passion. So I am there to share my knowledge along with other two panelists, speakers. Today's agenda, we have divided into three. We'll be giving an introduction to AML, then Go AML registration process, and then compliance procedure of the regulation. Go AML registration procedures will be handled by me. I'll be giving you the guidelines how to go ahead for Go AML registration. Just before that, the first speaker will be Mr. Samir, and the last speaker will be Mr. Sahid. Myself, I'm a chartered accountant by profession, and in the UAE for last 15 years. That is, I started my career in 2003, so around 17 years or 18 years even. So I've been handling many topics like VAT or ESR or UBO or AML, different topics since 2017 onwards. I'm handling VAT as well in different platforms on different subjects. Myself as the Vice Chair of Customs and Trade Facilitation Commission of International Chamber of Commerce. So I'm very much happy and honored for giving this opportunity to moderate this session and taking up a small role of as speaker as well today. Let me go ahead for introducing our two speakers. Then we will move ahead with the subject directly now itself. Just give me a few seconds to share the slides. The first speaker is Samir Ahmad Shahid.
Mr. Shahid is a certified public accountant from the Institute of Certified Public Accountant of Pakistan. Apart from that, he is a chartered business consultant from the Chartered Association Business Administrators Canada, a member of the Accounting and Auditing Association UAE, and a member of the Certified Public Accountants Association UK. He has more than 20 years of experience in the UAE and mainly in incorporation of companies. Mr. Shahid is active member of number of business and professional councils in the UAE and former vice president of PBPC Abu Dhabi and currently vice chair of ICC UAE Commission on Customs Trade Facilitation Commission. Mr. Zahid Farag, partner CEO of Advent Management Tax Consultants, a member of ACCA, UAECA. He has led compliance department of non-financial industry in UK for over 10 years. Contributed as AMLO in audit firm in UK region to develop the standard compliance procedures for the retail industry clients. Having good experience in operational risk identification and recommending risk mitigates including risks relating to AML. Conducted compliance audits on AML for various industries in UK. Since 2016 working in GCC region on various compliance projects specifically related to VAT compliance, internal controls and risk management strategies development.
Dears, just the webinar will be going like this. The first part will be discussed by Samir, second part will be by me, and Sahid will be handling the key speaker. Sahid will be handling the AML compliance. If you have any queries related to the topic what we are discussing, please, you can see the Q&A part in the down. Everyone can see that one. Please raise your question there. We will be answering for those questions towards the end of this session. We'll have around 15 to 20 minutes for the Q&A. And if you have any technical issues, then you can see a chat box here, and then please send your message there. If any technical issues there, I'm there to resolve, and our coordinator Habib is there to resolve, so we are there to support you. With this, let me invite our first speaker, Samir Ahmad.
Thank you, Manu. Good morning, everybody. I hope all of you are well and safe. Today's topic is quite interesting. It has been chosen by ICC, our commission, and basically starting with money laundering. Money laundering is a criminal offense which involves the processing of unlawful proceedings to disguise their illegal origin, which can also, we can say that money laundering is the process of by which financial proceeds are obtained from unlawful activities. It is integrated into legitimate economy by putting it through series of transactions to disguise the source of funds. Examples can be tax evasion, bribery, fraud, illegal arms sales, smuggling, and other activities of organized crime. Terrorist financing. Terrorist financing provides funds for terrorist activities. Terrorist financing may involve funds raised from legitimate sources such as personal donations and profits from businesses and charity organizations, as well as from criminal resources, which can, the objective of this law is to disguise the sources of funds or to reciprocate the recipient of the fund. Since terrorists raise funds from legitimate sources in small quantities, the direction and tracking of these funds becomes more difficult. The legislative framework is as follows. As per Federal Law of number 20 of 2018, Anti-Money Laundering and combat financing of terrorists and illegal organizations. Then there was another law, Cabinet Decision 20, terrorism list regulations and implementations of UN Security Council resolution on the suppression and combating of terrorism and terrorist financing. And then basic onwards decision law number 10. Then there was law number 58 was issued. The developments, the international efforts have been that the UN Security Council resolution number 1373, and then there was subsequent resolutions. The FTAF 40 recommendations came out. International Monetary Fund assessment technical support was out. Then EU directive and basic committee supervision was given. Wolfsburg principles had also been given. The local efforts of the UAE authorities, the UAE started maintaining the anti-money laundering system. Federal decree of 2018 was issued for the illegal financing of illegal organization. Then cabinet decision 10 was issued. Then cabinet resolution number 7 was issued, and then we had the latest one, cabinet decision 58 of 2020. The international legislative and regulatory framework. Intergovernment legislative bodies create laws to combat money laundering, the financing of terrorism, and prevention and suppression of rapid increase of weapons, mass destruction at international level, which participating members countries then transpose into their national counterparts. International and regional regulatory organizations develop policies and recommend, assess, and monitor the implementation by participating members, member countries of international regulatory standards. The international major intergovernmental legislative bodies, international regional regulatory organizations which include the United Nations, the Financial Action Task Force known as FATF, and the Middle East and Northern Africa Action Task Force. In the UAE, the AML legislative and regulatory framework is a part of the larger international AML CFT legislative and regulatory framework, which is made up of a system of intergovernmental legislative bodies and international and regional regulatory organization. In UAE, money laundering and the financing of terrorism and financing of illegal organization are covered under this federal criminal status and federal penal code. The implementation enforcements are the responsibility of the relevant regulatory and supervisory authorities in either the federal or local jurisdiction. The basic, the AML framework is as follows, which is quite self-explanatory. The cabinet decision 10, which basically includes the risks, KYC, due diligence, report, and record keeping of all the books of accounts for at least 5 years. The cabinet decision of 58, which includes, which is identified by the 25% of direct or indirect, and then having rights of 25%. Then the exempt entities for the are listed companies on regulated market, the also entities in financial free zone, and directly, indirectly wholly owned companies by federal or the local Emirates government. And than senior most officials in UBO. Thank you very much, Manu. I'll leave you for the rest.
Wow, that was wonderful. And Samir, yeah, the basic things, even if we sit for 2 hours, it will not finish. So you have summarized the basic things. So that was the first part. Now we are going ahead with the AML registration for DNFBPs. It may extend, my session may be going for 10 minutes or 12 minutes. Then we will go ahead with a key discussion today or key learning of today that will be handled by the key speaker, Sahid Farouk. So before that, let me just give you how AML, or what is the importance of AML registration, and who has to do it, when has to do it, how has to be done, and if not done, what is next? Risky. So we are going to discuss that one now. Let us understand first, who is a DNFBP? That's important. You should know who has to register under GoAML, who has to register under AML requirements. So first point is, you should know who's DNFBP. DNFBP has to register under GoAML. So let us understand who's DNFBP. DNFBP is, expansion is like this: designated non-financial business and profession. That is, non-financial institutions or individuals who is in the business and profession, who are called as designated. That means they have been given a specific responsibility. Anyway, as you know, that financial institutions like banking, money exchanges are having the compliance requirements already, because they have to report to central bank. The compliance requirements already in place. There are certain non-financial businesses or profession are designated as specifically for complying this regulation. Who are this? Number one, real estate brokers and agents. They are DNFBPs. Dealers in precious metals and precious stones. Then lawyers, notaries, and other independent legal professionals, and independent accountant, auditors. Yeah, it is wide. A lot of different types of licensees are involved in that. A lot of professionals are covering under this. And then providers of company services and trust. So the service of trust or service providers of company incorporation also falling under that. So those are the main categories. For under that, there are subcategories. Different licenses are forming under designated non-financial business and profession category. What is GoAML? GoAML is a portal. It is an integrated platform used to file suspicious transaction reports, that is called STR, or suspicious activity reports. This is a portal, online portal, where the STR or SAR report can be submitted. That's a portal. So we have to get registered there. Then only we will be able to submit those reports. So now we are going to understand why I should register under GoAML. You should register under GoAML because then only you can submit this report STR to the authority. The reporting entity, that is the DNFBPs, have an obligation to have procedures in place to report suspicious transactions to the authority. Unless you register under GoAML, you will not be able to submit the report. If you are not able to submit the report, you are violating the regulation. That's why you have to register under GoAML. Registration will allow you to access the system so you can notify the authorities of criminal and suspicious activities as and when they occur. So that's why we have to register under GoAML. What's the due date? Due date is 31st. The first due date was given 31st March 2021. Then by notice circular, a circular was issued on 8th April and extended up to 30th April 2021. Now the due date is over, and if anyone has not registered yet, as you know that authority has got the right to impose administrative penalties for DNFBPs. So please ensure that you are registered within the due date, before the due date. In case if it didn't happen, please go ahead and register now, because the penalty is not small amount. 50,000 dirhams up to 5 million dirhams, the penalty will be there. So violation of AML regulation, huge penalty, huge penalty. So never miss it. Please comply the regulation. So now I'm going to give you in brief how the registration process has to be done. So even I have a detailed presentation. I'll just show the slides. I may not be able to give you in detail because of the limited time. Of course, if you have any doubt, I can share the slide later for your reference, and even the guideline is issued by the authority as well, how to go ahead for GoAML registration. But still, I'll give you a brief. There are two stages. The first stage is the registration stage and the protection system, that is SACM, Service Access Control Management of GoAML portal. The second one is for the registration in the GoAML system itself. So these two stages I will explain in brief. That is the first stage. Before registration, you keep your documents ready. That is copy of the passport, copy of commercial trade license, authorization letter, and get ready with the Google Authenticator application in your phone. Maybe Android or iPhone, anything. There are versions available. You have to keep it ready. Then go ahead for registration by accessing the central bank's website. So you can see here, and once you click here, eservices.ae/SACM, you will go to the registration option. Click there, then you are going to get this page like this, wherein you have to insert your basic information like registration type, your reporting entity, name of the organization, supervisory body. The supervisory body, in most of the case, it will be Ministry of Economy, then license number, ID number, type your name, and all this detail, personal detail, passport number, and this information you have to disclose. Then you will get an email, type your email address and then mobile number and all this information, and authorization letter as well, the trade license. What you have to attach? Authorization letter, trade license, and then ID proof, passport details, and everything you have to attach. Then you will get an acknowledgement through in your inbox. Sometimes it may go to spam. Please check your spam as well and ensure that you get this acknowledgement. Then acknowledgement will be looking like this. The screenshot also I've shown here. Now, the next one, a supervisory body will scrutinize the documents you submitted, and then if it is approved, then you will get an approved email, or it may get rejected. So if you are getting an approval email, it will look like this. Now the next step is you will get OTP in your mobile, you will get OTP in your email, and use this OTP and insert in this in the screen which shows here. Please keep in mind 24 hours is only the validity of this OTP, so you have to do it without much delay. Now you are going to get a key. It is not a physical key, e-key you are going to get. So obtain the secret key and you will get it through email. See here, you can see the username and password, username and then secret key you can enter and have the access. Please keep ready, as I said, that the Google authenticator authenticated app, Google Authenticator app in your mobile, either it is an iPhone or Android version is available or iOS version is available. Please download it and install it. start button, and then you will go through this process, and then you are completing the first stage of GoAML registration. Now, the second stage is registration in GoAML portal. Go to services.central bank UAE's website, cbuae.gov.ae. Click there, then you can navigate to the registered link and register as a new organization. Click there. So the new organization. So the reporting entity or stakeholders and supervisory body, like these three options you will be getting. You are the reporting entity, and you can click the reporting entity. Generally, you will be a reporting entity only. We are talking to the SME sectors and then the DNOBPs only. It will go to and ask the details of the organizations and other details like commercial registration number, and all this information it will be asking you provide the contact information, MLROs, compliance persons details, and your website, and then business activity. All this information you provide, phone numbers and address as well. Then the registration, then once the registration form has been submitted, the registration information has been submitted button will we will populate the registration reference number as well. See here an attachment, you will get the registration number as well. Then the approval part comes. Once the request has been submitted, and if your application is accepted after the supervisory bodies or financial intelligence units verification, once it is approved, then you will get a information, or you will get a approval login like this. Once you get it, that is the end of GoAML registration. Now you have done the GoAML registration. Now the next step is how to proceed, what to do. So that part and the compliance part, the next speaker, Mr. Said, will be discussing. So just before that, 1 more minute or two, 1 minute I would like to take. So that many people are having, many businesses are having concerns on 2-3 points. That's what I would like to highlight here. Do I need to register a separate application for subsidiaries or branches or GoAML? No. There are 2 options. Option 1, if you have a branch or subsidiary, option 1, you can register this separately. Otherwise, you can use the same registration code itself. The main entity must be registered. That is, main entity you have to register. The holding company or the head office you have to register. MLRO may, that is money laundering reporting officer, may register additional users under the same organization ID and grant them admin rights. This is option. So if branch, then my suggestion is not to register separately, use this as a C. Some other questions. How will I know that I have pre-registered? So what happens always, the communication is a proper communication on time. You will get communication from the authority. If you, once you do the pre-registration, immediately you will get a secret key by email. And if you have registered, if you have completed the registration, you will receive an email notification from Financial Intelligence Unit, and will be able to successfully log in the GoAML portal. Once you get the email and then username password, then please try check whether GoAML portal you are able to access or not. And then other option, other questions. Generally, people ask, I have not received the email on or mobile OTP, then what we can do? Or I experience some technical difficulty. Sometimes it's an online portal, so sometimes the technical difficulty also you may face. Don't worry, you write email to goaml@uaefiu.gov.ae. You can note down this email ID. If any technical error is there, register, send an email to this. And another point is that if I have entered an incorrect mobile number, okay, it may go to someone, or wrong email ID, it may go to someone. Or if I entered incorrect information by mistake, then you have to send email to another email ID that is called aml@economy.ae. So this is the basic information I would like to share related to the registration under GoAML. Now we are going ahead with the key area of today's discussion. That is my friend, Mr. Sahid Farooq will be handling that one. Mr. Farooq, then please take it forward.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, so what I will do, 1 minute, let me share the slides, and then we will continue with the compliance procedure, what we have to do. What is the procedure? Basically, like now everybody can see, I think this slide, everybody can see those one. So basically, the basic purpose of this AML is to align with the international standards, just to stop the money laundering, to stop terrorism financing. So these are the two basic goals, because UAE is part of the international organizations, member of the international organization. So that's why in UAE, these regulations have to be implemented. There is no choice now. They have to follow the international standards. So that's why there are basically 5 pillars of the national strategy. The first pillar is related to the legislative and regulatory measures, where UAE release the laws, release the regulation, which we already discussed in short. Now, the strategy for that one is to make sure the effective implementation of those legislation and those regulatory policies, and everybody must be in compliance with those legislations. And then the second pillar of the strategic national strategy is the transparent analysis of the intelligence. Now, as we discussed, as like MLRO, money laundering officer, what we have to do, we have to report the suspicious transaction. When we are reporting the suspicious transaction, basically we are reporting that one to the Financial Intelligence Unit, FIU. When we report that transaction to Financial Intelligence Unit, what they will do, they will analyze the transaction. They will check the background of the transaction. They will make sure what information we provide to them that is correct. And then they also, like in cooperation with the international corporations, where we discuss about the FATF and then UN Security and other organizations. So because part of that one, they will share the information with those organizations also, just to reconfirm if that suspicious activity happen only in UAE, they can stop in UAE. And then if the related links are with the other countries. So that's why all the information and all the data will be shared with the other countries also. Then the fifth pillar is the compliance and law enforcement. So every business working in UAE, either they are registered for AML or they are not registered for AML. They must comply with the law of AML. So for that one, there are investigations, there are procedures where government bodies, where informants agencies will make sure every business is in compliance. So what I will do, we will discuss about the basic steps of the compliance. What are the measures, what we have to consider, which factors are there, which we need to discuss, which we need to focus on, and how we can minimize the risk. So we will discuss these one in short. So the key derivative of the success for the informant, for the compliance purpose, is to make sure effective implementation, and the Financial Intelligence Unit and law enforcement agencies, they are supervising everything. They are supervising the transaction. They will supervise whatever information we will provide them. And they will make sure all the business are in compliance with the law, with the regulations, and they are in compliance with the financial institute. Now, the financial institute, they are managed by the central bank. They already have the separate compliance procedure. They are already reporting those transactions, which are suspicious transactions, to the central bank, to the Financial Intelligence Unit also. But the non-designated financial institute, they were not part of that one. With the implementation of this law, non-financial institutions are also part of that one, who will provide the information related to the suspicious transaction to the government authorities, to the Financial Intelligence Unit. And then the Financial Intelligence Unit, with the National Action Plan, they will take those transactions further, reinvestigate those one, make sure like the people who are involved in the money laundering or who are involved in the financing for the terrorist activity, they must bear the consequences of those one. So there are some basic offenses which are covered under the AML. So those offenses, that is list of the 21 offenses which Financial Action Task Force provided. So in that list, basically fraud is in there, counterfoiling apparency of the products, that is also part of that one. That is also part of the offenses which come under the AML. Then like illegal trafficking or not drugs, professional or third-party money laundering, which involve basically the third party, not direct money laundering. We involve in between some other organization which do money laundering on behalf of the person who is involved in that one. Then insider information or robbery of theft, that is also the predictive offense. Same way, smuggling, kidnapping, environmental crime, tax crime, which also include the tax evasion and terrorism financing, extortion or trafficking of human beings. So these 21 basic offenses which will indicate if anybody is involved in money laundering or not. So if these are there, then we have to report. Yes, so UAE, what they did basically they categorize the threats, what threat UAE have. So they categorize it at two levels, the highest level of the threats and then medium to high level of the threats. So highest level will include the frauds, piracy of the products, dealing in the drugs, and then money laundering through the third party, to the professional third parties. And then what come under the medium to high level, that is basically the insider information, robbery or theft, and then trafficking like in stolen and other goods, forgery is part of that one, smuggling, tax crime, and terrorism financing is also part of that one. Now, why they categorize some on the highest level, other threats are at the medium high level? Because these threats, if we talk about the frauds, normally it's not trackable. But if we talk about the other side of information like inside trading or market manipulation, that is highly regulated in UAE. Robbery and theft, if we check in UAE, the rate is minimum. So that's why these type of threats, there is like they are low risk threats, but other side which are non-traceable, those threats are on highest risk. So the main purpose of the AML to track these threats which are at the highest risk. But the medium level threats, those are also part of that one. Main focus will be on the highest level. Now the compliance process for the AML, basically there are three parts of that one. First thing, what we have to do, we have to identify the risk of money laundering or terrorism financing. So how we will identify that one? There are specific factors. I will discuss those factors in short in further slides. But if we identify those factors, then we have to assess what is the probability of happening of those one. What is the level of the threat? Are those one at highest level? Those one are at the medium level? Are those one at the low level? So we have to find out the effectiveness of the threat. And then third step in the compliance process, basically, whatever the risk we identified, at whatever level, that is a different story, but whatever risk we identified, we have to mitigate those risks. How we can do those one? We must have risk management strategies. So these three steps I will discuss like one by one. So first of all, basically, how we can identify the money laundering or terrorism financing risk. So there are key factors. As I explained to you, there are 5 basic factors. The risk factor. First one is the customer risk. So customer risk basically is categorized at like enterprise level or business relationship level. When we talk about the enterprise level, we need to find out what is the target market, like our customer, where they are dealing in. They are dealing in with the countries which are blacklisted, or they are dealing with the other countries. And then what is the size of the transaction? What is the growth rate of the customer base? Either like sometimes it's happened, like business setup and growth within 1 year, maybe like 10 times or 20 times. So if that unusual growth, that is one indicator that there is something going wrong. So we have to find out that one. And then it depends on the business model, what business model they are using, what strengths and relationship they have with people, like what type of organization they have the relationships, or what type of persons are involved in that one, specifically when involved like politically exposed person. So that is the highest place. And then it depends on the IT infrastructure and management information system. If IT infrastructure is, I will say, highly sophisticated, information can't be forged in that one, or it is really hard to forge information in the infrastructure, then the risk can be lower. But if there is no infrastructure, no IT infrastructure, as the case in most of the small organizations, if infrastructure is not that sophisticated, means our risk is low. So we have to find out from our risk factor, from the customer base, what type of risk we are facing basically. Then we need to discuss about the relationship, specific risk, like what is the complexity of the transactions. Most of the time, money laundering transactions, those are basically netted transactions. I will discuss that one shortly, like how money laundering, basically money launderer perform the money laundering. So you will know specifically from that one. So the complexity of the transaction is the basic thing which we need to check out. And then regulation and supervision, if there is any specific regulation, if there is any specific regulatory body regulating that specific entity or that specific person. And then we need to find out the associations. That person or that organization is linked with other organization. What type of links are there? What are the relationships there? Then the second major factor is basically geographic risk. Geographic risk is basically the regulatory and supervisory framework. Like in UAE, they are introducing AML, part of Financial Action Task Force, member of UN Security. So geographically, if we check this region, they are part of the supervisory body. They have their own national framework to combat with the terrorism or money laundering. Same way, what international sanctions of the countries are, like on Iran, there are international sanctions, on Sudan, there are international sanctions. So if anybody who is in UAE dealing with those countries, what type of dealing they are doing, what are their business relationship with those countries, how many, what is the size of the transaction, we need to check these things. So geographically, if their business is dealing with the other countries which are in this blacklisted, then we need to be careful. We need to prioritize those one. And then we need to check about the reputation of the customer. Either they are reputed, they are not reputed, how people are dealing in the market with those customers. And then consistency with the customer profile. If my business, like one of the organization, is dealing with one customer, how consistent they are dealing, what type of transaction are always there, either same amount of money is coming in and coming out, something like that. So if a consistent transaction and always the amount is same, and at the end, when we find out there are less, I will say, the documentation related to that one, that means there are something wrong. There are some wrong transactions. So we have to find out that one. We have to prioritize that one. Same way, the third factor, the risk factor, is related to the product or service. Yes, this is transaction related risk. So we have to make sure whatever transactions are, what is the complexity of the transaction? What is the topology of the transactions? Are the transactions transparent? If not transparent, or if those are complex transactions, we can't find out either transparent or those are not transparent, then we have to find out the value and the size of the transaction. It is not compulsory that only large transactions are involved in money laundering. Sometimes it happens, small transactions which are involved in money laundering, but at the end, when we check the overall value, that is in millions, that is like large amount. So we should not ignore the small transactions also. We also keep a check on the small transaction along with the large transaction. But at the end, it depends on the complexity, what type of the customer we are dealing. Then there are channel lists. Channel list basically the customer relationship list. How we are delivering the products, how we are delivering the services. Either that delivery is face-to-face, or it is over the internet, or we are using any third party, or there are any agents involved in that one. If that is the process, like agents are involved in that one, there are intermediary parties, then we have to make sure we should have the information related to all of those intermediary parties, all of those the agents, so that we can find out if the transaction is not involved in the money laundering. Then there are other risk factors, like there are notional risk factors which come up whenever they want, then cybersecurity, distributed network. So we have to make sure we identify the risk factor. So the first step is to identify the risk. So that's why I'm just explaining the risk factor. One thing you have to focus on. And as I talk about the topologies mean how we are transferring either traditional transfer or just non-traditional transfer, how we are making the payment through the financial channels, it's through the non-financial channel. Is there any specific remittance system involved in that one, or we are using that hawala, or call that one hundi? So how the transaction is performing. Is there any physical transport of the cash or stored value related to the goods? That also part of that one. Now, these days, the major thing, if we talk about, is the cryptocurrency. Yes, transaction happen, we transfer from one person to another person. So asset is transferred from one person to other person. At the end, the actual source of the transaction can't be traced. From where it is coming up, it is really hard because of decentralized system. So we need to make sure how they are making the payment. What are the process? Then purchase and sale of the precious goods. So if any money involved in that one, so whoever is dealing with the precious goods, they need to know what is the source of the fund which are used to purchase those precious goods. Or if we are selling those one, the person who we are selling, from where they are generating that money, they must provide, we must know the customer, which will cover under the KYC. We have to have information about the customer who we are dealing with. And then sometimes there is trade-based money laundering. There are some trade transactions, actual products are never delivered, but at the end, money is received. So that is an other thing. Then real estate based. So most of the money launderers, they invest in the real estate. So real estate investment, that's why it is compulsory to keep a track on the real estate investment. How people are purchasing the property, specifically when it's come to the high value property like in UAE, from where that money is coming in. So have to track that one. If our customer can't provide us as a business, if our customer can't provide us the source of the transaction, source from where they generated those funds, then it means there is something wrong. We have to find out. If we are suspicious about that transaction, we have to notify that one to the financial intelligence unit. Then same way, like money laundering, they're using the VAT or custom duty or other taxes. Like in UAE, till now, there are no other taxes, only custom duty is there or VAT is there. So they are using those one as a vehicle for the money laundering. And then the business structure is most important. How is the business structure? Sometimes it happens, one business they have 10 different entities. And then there are nested transactions between the all of those entities. So the actual source from where the transaction started is, I will say, hidden. So we can't find out. So we need to make sure what is the structure of the business, how they are performing the business. So what do we do for that one? Basically, we always use the risk-based approach. We will identify the risk factor, then we will prioritize those risks based on their size, based on the complexity, based on the value, we will prioritize those one. If that risk is high level risk or low level risk, then as per the priority, we need to report those risks to the tax department. The other model we can use to identify those one is the standard model, money laundering or generic model. So what we do basically in that one, we determine the placements, like from where those funds are introduced in the transactions in the system. So this is basically the 3 steps which normally involve in the money laundering. First thing, the money launderers, they introduce the funds into the system, into the financial system. How they can introduce that one? They will introduce those funds to the, as we discussed, either through the real estate or through like precious metal or other way of like business transactions. So small amount, they will start introducing those one into the financial system. Then normally they use this small amount so that nobody can suspect about those one, either these are involved in the money laundering. And what they will do, they basically, they will try to hide the source of those funds, nature of those funds, from where those proceeds are coming. So they will do the nested transactions. So that is layering basically. From one company, from company A to company B, from company B to company C, from C to D, it will come back to company A. So this way they will do the nested transaction, they will do the layering. So that the initially from where this transaction started, they want to hide that source. And then when after the layering, what they will do, they will integrate those funds into the financial system. So now those funds, like once those introduced in the financial system, then the basic source of those funds were like hidden. And at the end, when you can't find out the basic source, they will integrate with the financial system. When they will integrate with the financial system, it's part of the financial system. Now it is part of all the transaction. You can't find out, you can't go back, you can't find out the actual source from where those started. So this is the process of the money laundering. So we need to make sure either we use this approach or we go back basic process of the money laundering, how money laundering is done. So if there is any complex transaction, business structure is complex, so we need to find out that one. So that's why size of the transaction never matter. What matter? The way, the structure of the transaction, that is most important. We need to focus on that one. After identifying the risk, what are the risk factors are there? What we have to do basically, we have to assess what is the level of the risk. First point was to identify if there is risk, what type of risk is there, and then we need to assess what will be the impact, what will be the implication of that one. So what we will do that one basically, that is basically like reflect the supervision institute like management approved risk appetite. What every business should have, they must have risk assessment documents. They must have their internal risk management policy where they should manage that one, what type of risk they can bear, what is the risk management policy, what consideration they should take. Like if we are dealing with any customer, what level, like which customer we should accept, which customer we will not accept. So they must have that one. They must appoint a compliance officer. And then for everything, for every transaction, whatever business is doing, there must be documentation policy. How we document that one. If we talk about the KYC, like about your customer, their background check, to what level you will check, what document you will consider in that one, what documents you will ask from the customer. Okay, and then after doing the KYC, you have to assess what type of transaction you can do with that specific customer. So this is basically the part of the risk management policy. So we must have, as a business, we must have our own internal risk management policy. And that is the basic part of the AML compliance. So when we talk about the AML, if we don't have our risk management policy, we don't have any documentation, how we will accept any customer or how we will deal with any of the business, then this is the basic point where we fail our compliance procedure. So the risk assessment, basically there are 3 parts of that one. First part is the documentation. So what is overall risk policy, what documents we have related to that one. Either we documented our risk management policy or we not documented that risk management policy. If we document that risk management policy, then how we will assess that risk. So assessment policies and procedure, we have to design those one. And which model, which risk management model we will use. Either we will use our, I will say the risk-based model, or we will use the generic model, generic money laundering model, which model we will use, or we will use any other model. Whatever model we are using, we have to document that one. We have to define the steps, what steps we will take to assess that risk. And then how we can identify the risk. For each business, that risk identification will be different because each business is dealing with different type of customer. As real estate business, they are dealing mostly with the individuals. Trade business, they are dealing with the individuals as well as they are dealing with our like other business. So sometimes we are dealing like with the agents. So we have to make sure, like when we are identifying the risk, what document should have, what are our internal sources, how we can identify the risk. We should have our internal document where everybody must know like what is the procedure to identify the risk. And then when we identify after those documents, we must have the detail of the risk. Like if related to the real estate investment, what type of customer, what are the key risk factors, what are the detail of those one, to what level we have to investigate to minimize the risk or to find out the risk. And then further to that one, there should be like first thing in assessment is documentation. Second thing is basically to updating. Every time when there is, I will say the new transaction or any time when there is something coming up new, what we have to do, we have to make sure we are updated. We are updated with all the laws. We are updated with all the risk assessment process. If we change our business model or if we are changing our activities, what we have to do, we must update our risk management policy. So we need to make sure we update regularly. What are the new regulations? What are the new investment? Like that is list of the sanctions countries. Yes, so that list is always updated. So we need to make sure whenever the list is updated, we should update that list. Same way there are politically exposed person, the list of the politically exposed person is regularly updating. So we need to make sure we update those lists also. Similarly, if we change our nature of our business, we change the way we do the transaction, then we need to update our documents. We need to update our risk management policy. And then the third step in the risk management policy is basically how we analyze those risks. So what we need to consider in this case, we need to consider what is the probability, what is the likelihood of the occurrence of the risk, what risk we identified, what will be the probability, and which probability we need to report, which probability we can manage internally. Like if there is very low risk, probability maybe like probability of happening only 1%, we can manage that one internally. Maybe we stop dealing with that customer. Yes, if something like that, we need to make sure how we are doing the analysis and timing of identification of the risk. When we have to identify, like if talk about like dealing with any customer, we need to identify when we accept the customer, or we need to identify when we do the transaction with the customer, or we need to identify after the transaction. We have to make sure at what time we are identifying those risks. And then what will be the impact of those risks on the organizations? Whatever risk we identified, how will impact our organization as a business? So we need to identify that one. We need to analyze. So everything must be documented in our risk management policy. Everything must be clearly mentioned in terms. So some example of the operational risk, I just highlighted those one, like relevant to internal source, what we have to do, like if there is something which any of the employee think this is like suspicious transaction, they have to mention that one to the compliance officer. Or when you are receiving the information from the external sources or from the integral sources, we identify the risk at that point. Like when we are accepting any of the customer, we identify the risk at that point. And then we need to determine what risk model we are using. Yes, different companies, as I told, will have different model. It depends on the nature of the business. It depends on the nature of transaction. It depends who we are dealing with. Accordingly, our risk management policy will change. Our risk appetite will change. So how we can evaluate the likelihood of the probability? What are the criteria? So we need to make sure about those one. How we determine at what time and what will the impact, how we can mitigate that risk, everything should be there. So these are some examples, operational examples, which every day we will feel. Like if we are related to any audit firm or any of the accounting firm, so we will check at the time of the testing and effectiveness of the consistency. Like what is the effectiveness of the of our audit model, what we are applying to do the audit of our client. So it depends. So from business to business, that will vary. Then after like we identify the risk factor, we have our internal policy. Then we must make sure we mitigate those risks. Now, when we make our risk management policy, the second part of the risk management policy is always how to minimize the impact of those risks, what we have to do basically. So that is same way for AML compliance purpose. We must have a process. We must have our internal procedures which will show how we can mitigate our risk. So what we can do, we must have like proper internal control, proper policies, proper procedure, how we will mitigate our risk. Yes, where we need to identify, when we need to assess. So what we can do basically, we can define our customer due diligence. When we accept the customer, that due diligence is also part of the KYC and all those things. So we must have internal policy related to that one. And then we need to monitor the customer or the transaction. Yes, if there is anything suspicious, we need to report that one to our money laundering officer as a business, because every business will appoint one money laundering officer. So like non-designated financial business, we will appoint a money laundering officer. But at the time of the registration, we have to provide the information of that money laundering officer, that administrator. So if any employee of the business find out any suspicious transaction, so they need to report that one to the money laundering officer. Yes, or if they are like they can report that one directly to the financial intelligence unit, they can do that one. It depends who is authorized inside the organization to report that transaction. Then we should have our compliance procedure. Yes, like we should provide the training to the staff, how we can identify the risk, how we can mitigate the risk, how we can identify the suspicious transaction. So there must be training for the staff also. So along with that one, whatever we have in internal policy, all the staff will not be aware about that one. Yes, so we have to train to them. So this is not responsibility only of the money laundering officer to find out like suspicious transaction, is responsibility of every employee in the organization. If there is anything suspicious, they need to report that one. And then we need to make our policy about the record keeping. How we keep our record, what records we must have. Like this is also part of the risk management policy, but this is also like our internal policy, what record we must keep, for how long we have to keep those records, and in what format we need to keep those records. So everything must be clearly mentioned in that. There must be clear internal policy, clear control procedure. If those things are there, then it will be easier to, I will say, to mitigate the risk, to find out the suspicious transaction at very early stage. So what we have to do basically for that one, I given some examples. So we can implement our like customer due diligence process. So in that one, we will start from the identification. We will identify the individual customers, yes, our legal entity, who are the beneficiary owners. So there is one law where law explains, law number 58, which explains the alternative beneficiary owner. We must make sure, as per that law, we identify the alternative beneficiary owner or owner of the legal entity. Or if that is a natural person, that person will be the ultimate beneficiary owner. That is simple. But if we are dealing with any legal entity, who is the ultimate beneficiary owner, we need to make sure about that one. Then if we determine who is the ultimate beneficiary owner, we need to verify the information of that person. So whatever identity we have, need to verify that identity through the official documents. So every country have like some official documents. If customer is in UAE, official documents are, I will say, the passport, Emirates ID, or your visa status, if that is a natural person. If that is a company, the trade license is there, the office address is there, and then authorized person detail is there. So we can identify that one. We can verify the identity through the official documents. Then after verifying the customer, if like there are transactions, so we need to find out what is the source of the fund. So until we are not sure about the source of the fund, or we are suspicious about source of the fund, then if we have proper due diligence process, we will deny that customer. We will not continue our business with that customer. If we suspect that customer may involve in money laundering, we can identify the risk at earlier stage. And then we have to do the periodic review. Whatever like KYC we did before, we need to update those one with the customer. Regularly, we need to update those ones so that we are updated with the, I will say, the ultimate beneficiary owner, or if those persons are not involved in money laundering activities, or they are not part of, I will say, the political exposed persons. So we have to do that one. And then each time we update, we need to like run the due diligence process again. So that is continuous process. It will continue forever until we are dealing with that customer. We will continue this process periodically. And when we can take that one, so there are steps. Like the first step, we can do that one like when we accept the customer. That is the very first step. So we need to know about our customer, who we are dealing with, who will be involved in our business. Is that person? What is the identity of that person? So due diligence, if we do the KYC, do the due diligence at that point, so start of the transaction, we can find out everything. Yes, when we establish the business relationship at that point, or on the occasional transactions. So as I told, periodically we can do that one. On some transaction we can do, or where we suspect, we can do those transactions. Or sometimes there are exceptional circumstances. Yes, when there are suspicious criminal activities, or sometime when you suspect about that person, or when business nature change. So it depends, case to case, legal agreement change. So all of those those are the like exceptional circumstances when we have to perform the due diligence. We should perform that KYC process again and again. So in KYC, basically 3-step process. First, we do the registration. That one, like we get the mandatory details, which I told you, the identification documents. Yes, like detail about the customer, where they are, what they are doing, everything. And then we will collect the original documents. Yes, either you will see the original, or you will find out the like original copy of the original. And then we will verify those ones through different sources. Like Emirates ID, we can verify in UAE. We can verify the trade license. If business is running in UAE, we can verify if that person is in UAE or not in UAE. So later on, UAE will open the portal for the business for the KYC purpose. So everything will be in there. At the moment, portal is open only for this specific business. So if you are registered, you can verify like identity. You can verify everything, or you have to do that one with a third party. But later, with the passage of the time, when system is fully developed, I hope, like in other countries, UAE will also provide that authorization to the company level. You can verify other person. So identification documents, I already explained that one to you. Emirates ID, passport, GCC ID, address verification documents, which is like your tenancy contract, or there will be like utility bills, all of those ones. and legal person, trade license, memorandum of association, tax registration certificate. So all of those documents. So if we know the our customer properly, we perform the due diligence at the start, then it will be easier for us to deal with the customer, to find out, to minimize our risk. Or sometimes what we do the enhanced customer due diligence. If risk factors are high, like if they are involved in the transactions which involve the frauds, yes, or person is bankrupted, bankruptcies there are something like that, or person is dealing with the country who's sanction from dealing with the blacklisted country. So if there is anything related to that one, which FATF also highlighted that one as high risk. So if any customer is dealing with such transaction, we have to do the enhanced customer due diligence. So what will be in that one? We will try to find out the source of the funds. So normal due diligence, that process will be there. Then there will be some additional steps. Yes. What source of fund? Are those source of funds are reliable? Those are not reliable. Yes. Who are the senior managers? Yes. Who are those people politically exposed person, or those are not involved in the politically exposed person? So we need to make sure about all of those funds. So we need to take the additional steps to verify the identity of the customer and the source of the fund. So as I talk about the sanction of blacklisted countries, so United Nations normally they issue that list. Then official of the foreign asset control, they issue the list. That list is available on their portal also. European Union, they have their own specific list, which country blacklisted by the European Union. If we talk about the UK HM Treasury, they have that specific list of the country where dealing is prohibited or restricted. Canada sanctions list, they have their own list. And then Central Bank of UAE, they also have the list of the countries. In that list of countries, Sudan is there, other some of the African countries are there. So dealing with those countries, if any customer dealing with those countries, either we should not accept that customer, or what we should do, we do the enhanced due diligence for that customer. So we need to make sure if that person, that customer is still not stop dealing with such country, then there is possibility we should report that customer to the financial intelligence unit. Now I talk about the political exposed person. Who are the political exposed person? Basically the person, the people are the person who are in part of the government, any government, a senior politician, senior government officials, they are relatives, relative of relatives. So all of those one are part of the politically exposed person. So direct family member are part of that one. Then close family members, those are part of that one. Individual having joint partnership, joint arrangement with the politically exposed person. Politically exposed person, normally the people who are corrupted and did the corruption and frauds, and they were part of the state or other foreign country. Yes, so all of those one will be there. So we need to make sure when we are dealing with such people, we must do the due diligence. We must do the KYC enhanced one. Yes. So what we can do for that one, we can have auto screening. If we are using any sophisticated system, we should have sophisticated IT system. We can enter the name of the list of the political exposed people. So when we're accepting any customer, when we enter that customer, system automatically will screen out that one. This person is linked with this politically exposed person. Or we must have informed supervisor, the person who will have updated knowledge about the politically exposed person, who can help the money laundering officer in finding out, in tracing politically exposed person, and then performing the due diligence for that one. Then we can obtain senior management approval. So whenever we're accepting any person, there must be approval from the senior management. We should accept this person, we should not accept this person. Yes, we should take reasonable measures from the bank statement, from the other financial. So all sorts of information from where we can collect the information. We must like we make sure in dealing with people, either they are critically exposed person or not. Then next step can be transaction monitoring. Whatever transactions we are doing, we must monitor those transactions. Yes. So what we can do, like if customer deposit cash, again, like if we are dealing with, we are in insurance company. Yes. Customer normally pay the cash for the premium. Yes. Or if we are normal like a trading company and we are dealing with the people, we are like non-financial designated entity, and we are dealing with the people who always pay in cash. So then there is some, I will say, the suspicion, why always they are making the payment in cash? Why they are not paying through the bank? What is the reason? How they are getting that money? So we need to make sure we monitor the transaction by transaction, we monitor everything. Yes, and if there is any suspicious transaction, money laundering officer must report that transaction to the central bank through like Go AML. So we have to report that transaction as the money laundering officer. Now there are some records to be in compliance. We must keep the records. So what records we must have? Basically, those are related to the like soft copies and hard copies of all the operations, original transaction, how that transaction started, what is the source of the transaction, and all the documents related to your customer. We must have those ones. And then if we terminate business with any other business or any person, why we terminate the business, what are the reasons, all of those documents, we must have that one. If we did any inspection for any of the our customer, we must have those records. So minimum time period to keep those records is 5 years. So it is responsibility of the board, responsibility of the senior management to appoint a compliance officer, implement like the operating system, prepare your internal risk management policy, and apply the directive of like competent authorities. If there is any suspicious transaction, have to report that one. We must have like AML, counter financial terrorism financing program management, how we can handle these transactions. We must train our staff. That is our responsibility as a top like management, senior management. Now, when we like appoint money laundering officer, their responsibility is basically whatever the suspicious transaction they find out, they further investigate those transactions. If those transactions are still suspicious, they need to report those transactions to the financial intelligence units through Go AML. We have to report those transactions, and we must keep quiet. We must not give tipping off to the customer that we report to you. We must not giving off that one, because that is also a crime. So we must keep that one secret. Then the main problem come up with the small organizations, because they have the governance issue. They have small number of employees. Their IT system is not sophisticated. Yes, each employee is already performing the multiple role. If they give the role of money laundering officer, then there will be overlapping like of the responsibilities. There is no clear identification of the responsibilities, and that person may have like additional responsibility which they may overlook those ones. So these are the problem of the small organization. How these can be overcome? Basically, what they can do, they can have a third party. They can make proper procedure for the internal control, proper risk management policy, and proper supervision policy. They must have like in-house due diligence. They must have a third party who can check their compliance, either they are in compliance or not in compliance. They can like contract with a third party. So this way, small organization can also, I will say, can have the compliance with the AML. So this is, in short, basically the compliance procedure for AML. How we can identify the risk, what risk factors are there, how we can assess that one, how we can prioritize those one, and how we can mitigate that one. So this is all from my side. So I will now hand over to Mr. Manno. If there are any questions, we can discuss those one. So now that is like question and answer sessions. So we can discuss that one. Mr. Manno, it's over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Saeed. It was a wonderful session. So yeah, AML, yeah, we can go to the Q&A. Some questions we got already, and you covered very well. So the compliance aspects you covered very well, but still the subject is not, it cannot be finished in half an hour or 1 hour or 2 hours.
Yeah.
Even it needs a lot of even days, I would say, goes that much vast subject. So here I'd like to go through some of the questions which we already got in Q&A part. Some attendees already asked some questions, and even through the panelists also, our senior members here, our vice chair is here, and our director is here, and then they will be interested to have some discussion here. Of course, we have very limited time, but still we can go for next 10-15 minutes the session. One or two questions I'll take up from the questions. Even I got some questions earlier also, but before that, before going ahead with the questions what I got from the members, attendees, anything is there specifically for our chair, Ms. Nadia Abdullah Aziz, to ask any specific question, or Vincent here, our director, to ask any question? Anything is
Manu, thank you for the opportunity. I must say it's a wonderful session. The presentations by all speakers, Samir, yourself, and Zahid, so much content in such a short time. But I want to ask a kind of a direct question, and I hope you don't mind, is, you know, on one hand, when I started, I said that, you know, compliance KYC is proving to be a challenge for small to medium-sized companies in doing business. And on the other hand, we must, of course, follow the highest standards of compliance, KYC, fighting financial crime. But, you know, you hear that some companies in the UAE with, for example, a general trading license are having difficulties maybe in opening bank accounts. Sorry to be so specific, but is that a compliance issue? And maybe any of our speakers can give them some advice on what steps they can make that maybe will make the journey a little bit easier, if you don't mind.
That is always when I sit in any panel discussion or any of the sessions, Vincent will bring some specific special questions. That's what here. So in the open this platform, it's a challenging questions to answer. Of course, there is an answer. The general trading license, and normally worldwide, generally we can't see this kind of license in everywhere. Very limited countries only we see this kind of license. That's why we are facing even the people who got the general trading license. If they want to open new bank account, it's a challenge because the compliance requirement became very tough. You know that, Vincent, if you get a general trading license, what you will sell? You will sell anything under the sun. You can sell anything that is got a general trading license.
Okay.
There itself, can't you see a risk element?
Yep.
That's the issue. That's the issue. So nowadays, authority is not issuing any more general trading license. So any more general trading license is not issued now. So for those who already having that license, of course, they are wherever they are having the bank account. Of course, there is no problem in operating. They are continuing it, but opening, even the bank has to do the more compliance requirements. That's why little more strict on opening new accounts for general trading license. And then Mr. Said also may be having from any word, anything you would like to add with this one, Farooq, because he's the right. Yeah, please go.
The financial institute, basically what they started for the general trading specifically, they already started like asking for the document for each transaction. Whenever there is like a big amount deposit or big amount withdrawal, they ask specific transaction documents, the invoices, what they issued, what if they are receiving the payment, and against that one, if there is any material they are sending, the transportation documents, they are already asking those ones. So central bank already advised to the financial institute to make sure if any transaction which is related to the general trading, if like big transaction, not regular transaction, need to make sure they stop that transaction until they find all the documents. If documents are not there, they will hold the transaction and that will go to the central bank. So that is already in process from the financial institutes. So central bank is already taking action on that one.
Excellent answer. Thank you so much.
Right. So we always recommend the companies to go, not to go for general trading license, go only for specific activity. so that it will be specific and business also specific. People are not doing anything under the sun. They are specific on their business. So that is better to go for that license. Thank you. That was an interesting question, Vincent. And there is one question which already asked in this whether the Go AML registrations opened or not. Still, it is opened or not. Ms. Nadia, you want to add something related to that one, or I saw a chat from you? Am I right?
No, actually, I know there are ways to submit information if you are suspecting anything. And I think taking this one step further, I would like to make sure that we get further engaged with the consultants so that every company that is registered within the UAE, every decision maker knows exactly what steps to take, how to register, how to report. And what are the areas, as you put, the areas, the gray areas where we need to be careful, where we need to ask for bank statements or anything official from the bank regarding all of these activities. And you guys did an amazing job. So on behalf of ICC, I would like to thank all of you for this excellent webinar. And I also like to thank all of the attendees for joining us. You can take more questions, I think, from the floor.
Correct. We can take more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we will come back to you, Ms. Nadia.
But we should get engaged to take this one step further to make sure all of our members and even non-members get acquainted on how to register, how to report, everything.
Correct. That is very important, ma'am. Now, Go AML registration only over. Even the people who are not registered, they can register. Of course, they may get a penalty. That is different thing, but they have to go for compliance or regulation. Next up, we should have one more session we will be having with your guidance and all. We will organize what are the steps to be taken and the proper guideline. There are 7 pillars for complying the AML regulation. So those 7 pillars we will be explaining step by step and giving guidance for our members as well as for non-members as well. That is what is required the next level. This is a basic understanding of the regulation and how to register. Next level is how to comply with one step by step 7 pillars, and then the guideline for that one we will give proper guideline for making the policy and procedure and for compliance of the regulation. So that can be our next session. So since many members are here still attending, so for their information, I shared that one just now. So we will go to more questions now. So Syed, you can just give me some insights to this question. I am having a management consultancy license and do bookkeeping activities services as for some of the customers. So the management consultancy license is not coming under this Go AML list. I have mentioned 4 lists. So should I go ahead for doing the Go AML registration? That is a question the person asked. So I would like to take up this call.
Yeah. So in this case, what we have to do, license is different story. Yes. What activities are in your license? Yes. Like maybe I have management consultancy license. I have I will say the accounting and bookkeeping in JAR. I have like tax consultancy in JAR. I have other activities in JAR. So it depends what activities in JAR. If the specific activities are part of that license, main license is management consultancy, but sub activities, what activities are in JAR. So if those are activities in JAR, you have to register. You have no choice. Yes. Right. But sometimes, like some companies, they don't have those activities. What do they do? Off the record, they are providing these services. So this is against the law. This is by itself is a crime. Yes. If any time like related regulatory body find out we are performing any activity which is not part of our license, which we are not supposed to carry out, then there will be a separate fine, administrative fine from that specific body. Yes. But in law, it will not be anywhere. It is like in compliance process whenever they will find out.
Correct. So if you don't have an activity in your license, but you are doing that activity is non-compliance of the licensing authorities, the requirement is not complied. That is one penalty, means that you have to do the activity only what is allowed. But here, as you rightly said, if you are doing an activity like independent bookkeeping or auditing activity or anything, but you have a management consultancy only, still you have to comply because you are doing that activity.
You have to.
From the AML. And the other side also, if you have an activity in the license, but you are not doing any activity. Suppose you have an activity of auditing activity or the bookkeeping, independent bookkeeping activity, but you are doing some consultancy only. You are not doing any of this activity, but still you have to register. So both the way, that's what, whether you are having that license or not, but you are doing activity, you have to register. If you are not doing that activity, but you have a license, still you have to register.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah.
Yeah. So getting the permission for getting the registration approval, if you don't have that activity in the license, is a challenging one. You may not get. That indicates that you cannot do that activity. So indirectly, they are giving an indication that you cannot do that activity unless you have that in the license.
Yes.
Very great. Good for Said. So it was a very interesting question, and similar to that one, some other questions also there. We are small businesses and trading activity. We are not part of DNFBP. Should we comply the AML regulation? They are not asking for the registration.
Yes.
As a small business in the UAE, they are not forming part of DNFBP. That means they are not part of that 4 activities, 4 licenses like lawyers, auditors, or precious metal traders, or the brokers of real estate. They are not into that one. They are, for example, they may be a small trader of grocery, anything. So should we develop an AML compliance policy and procedure? Should we comply with the regulation? Or how we can fix the risk mitigation strategies if required? So whether the law is applicable for them, that's what I want a simple answer from you.
Basically, the law is applicable on every person, on every entity which is operating in UAE. Either they come under those activities or they're not coming under those activities. Because it is our responsibility as an individual, as a business, we must stop those type of activities. So we must follow the law. Either we are registered or not registered. Registered person only will have like additional compliance which they need to report that activity. The people like entities who are like operating in UAE, they have like responsibility to comply with the law. Either they're registered or they're not registered, it's their responsibility. So they must have the documents, they must have like risk management policy. They must have a third party. I will not say directly they are registered. They must have a third party who can like report like suspicious transactions. So they must have that one.
Great. Another question got an online is in the Q&A session is that Google authentication of app, whether if I am using the registration from my laptop or desktop, still I have to go for Google authentication. Of course, that is the part of registration. There's a procedure, there's a confirmation which you have to do through that app. So you have to do it whether you are doing from laptop or desktop, doesn't matter. You have to comply with those procedures. That is a procedure, a part of the procedure of registration. And 1 or 2 questions I'll take maximum 2 questions now. So let me check anything new questions came in chat box or not. We can, one question is that you said that if we deal with politically exposed persons, we should report. So, you know, Mr. Saeed, politically exposed person itself saying that itself is risky. I'm worried. So if I see I dealt with someone, if I mention them, won't it be risky for me? So, yeah, please can you throw some light on it?
Yeah, basically, like when we are providing the information, we are providing information to financial intelligence unit, central banks. Yes, because financial intelligence unit is one division of the central bank. So we are providing information to the central bank, and that information is basically secret. Central bank will never disclose that information, who reported that person. That is the first thing. So that's why nobody knows who reported that person.
Great.
Yes, okay. So that is the main point.
So that you are saving my life. So that central bank will not inform us. So there is another, the other part of it also there. If you can discuss that one size. And in case if I am disclosing that I disclose your name, suppose I have a customer and I found something, some doubtful, suspicious transaction, I decided I'm going to report it because it is suspicious transaction.
Yes.
So in this case, I should not tell to anyone, to you or to the customer or anyone in this world that I have informed your name to the authority. If I am informing it, then I am violating the regulation and I will be penalized. There is a huge penalty for that one as well. So
Yes.
our responsibility, even I'm an auditor, so my responsibility is very high. So these are the requirements of the regulation now. Earlier it was for the bank and exchange companies, and now it is extended to people like us, like a DNFBP.
Yes.
And last question, which I would like to ask is, yeah, it is even Mr. Samir also available. If we can, he can also contribute something to this this one. The UAE introduced the AML regulation in 2018. The authority is insisting certain sectors only to register under Go AML. That means only the DNFBP. Do we expect any more compliance requirements from the authorities in future? His question may be intended in this way. 2018, the law came, but DNFBP has to go for mandatory registration now in 2021 by April only. Now, after 3 years. Now again, is there any a chance to come more compliance regulations? Is there anything, or you can have some lights on it, and even for Said can extend it if he also wants to contribute.
See, now since VAT had started, since VAT was one of the first implemented laws on different companies, right? And that was first, and then they are basically heading towards corporate taxation, right? And because of that, this and what has been historically seen in global countries, they are looking more on the compliance side, and these gradually will be, the compliance laws will furthermore increase, definitely.
Okay, yeah, Said, if you can also add some words on it, and then we can.
Yeah, basically in 2018, when they started, there was like from the central bank to the financial institute, this AML law was there, always there. Yes. But in 2018, when they introduced this law, this was for everybody. And at that time, for the financial institute, it was enhanced. There was some additional compliance requirement. And then they given the grace period to other companies to register by themselves, but everybody was not registered. So now when they release the regulation, they make sure like everybody should follow the regulation, because from a financial action task force, this is one of the action UAE has to do. Most of the countries who are part of the financial action task force, what they have to do basically, they have to implement the anti-money laundering law in all aspects. So UAE also part of that one. So now recently there are some too many issues related to money laundering and all those things. Yes. So since that time, financial asset task force given the additional, I will say, the regulations, and as part of that one, UAE also implemented those additional regulations, and that's why they given the time and for everybody to register, to understand the law, to register, to make sure they are in compliance. If we talk about the future, with updating the information, it's always new laws evolve. So 100% sure in future there will be more laws. Yeah, 100% sure. Because with the advancement of the technology and information, more compliance requirements are coming. As I talked before, because of that cryptocurrency, shortly there will be laws related to that one. How we can deal with the people who are dealing with cryptocurrency. Yes, so compliance always coming up. So it will be continuous ongoing.
Right. Even UAE's international competency to improve the international competency of the country, it has to. That's a process. What is happening? Even OECD is recommending, or the European Union is recommending to comply new regulations. Not a new regulation for UAE, but international requirements are the AML or OECD's guideline. That's a part which came in. Economic substance regulation came, country by country reporting came, and all those requirements are coming up because of the international bodies pressure or the suggestions. So IMF suggestions. So we are going ahead with more compliance. That is through that only the economy will be sustained, and it will be the international competency of the country will also go up. And with the last one point which I would like to highlight, Advocate Anchana Bhatia has asked a question. I don't know whether she's a member of ICC UAE. Her question is,
she's joining us.
Sorry?
She will be joining.
Okay, I thought of discussing that point. Her question is, for a small law firm, what documents are supposed to be kept to comply with AML in short? Madam, we are going to have a detailed sessions, and then now ICC UAE is conducting a lot of sessions like this. And for those attendees also, what I suggest, whoever is not a member, so this is a platform which is going in line with the latest updates for learning. Every month, 1 or 2 sessions we are having, even not only 1 or 2, even every week you can see 1 or the other sessions happening. So it's a platform where you will get updated in line with the latest requirements of the regulation in the UAE. With this note, I would like to thank excellent presentation done by Said Farouk and then Samir. The panel was excellent. The speakers done very well. With this note, I would like to invite, well, before saying goodbye, I'd like to hand over this virtual platform to someone whose vision comes from passion, someone who starts with the clean paper and reimagines the world, and someone who inspires others to make the vision into a reality one. Who's that? None other than our chairperson, Ms. Nadia Abdul Aziz. Madam, the virtual platform is for you.
Thank you. That's too much very big compliment, but this is all teamwork. Of course, the entire board and secretariat of ICC UAE has been working on bringing all of these events, whether virtual or face-to-face, to our members. First and foremost, we'd like to thank the entire team behind this. You are heading for a lot of events down the line, so please stay tuned. And before we speak about the upcoming events, let me thank all of the ICC UAE Commission team, the Trade Customs and Trade Facilitation, and also the people who coordinated and participated and put this entire material together. Of course, our renowned speaker, Mr. Zahid Farouk, Mr. Manu Nair, our VP, and Mr. Samir Ahmed Shahid, also our Senior Vice Presidents for ICC Custom and Trade Facilitation, Vincent, Habib, Joel, and our intern also. We have nice interns within the ICC and training nationals also as part of our CSR program. But most of all, I would like to make sure that all of you are in tune with the new law, with the legislation, and make sure that you know the latest rules and regulations, because we don't want to see our members, even non-members, getting penalized for being negligent or not knowing what to do. So the main thing is to file, to know the law. If you are in doubt, we've got a pool of consultants as our members, financial, accounting consultants who can assist you. Our vice presidents, a lot of them come from that background, so they will be more than happy to assist, and ICC will be also more than happy to assist. We will take this one step further and have more webinars on this and how to train you on registration, etc., and answering all of your questions. Of course, as I mentioned, we do have some more events coming up, and they are regarding social media marketing, online, offline marketing. This will take place in July, so get tuned in that. And we also are going to organize a supply chain and freight forwarding shipping also webinar and workshop. After that, we've got a full list of workshops. Mr. Vincent and Habib will be announcing that and sending circulars. But thank you, everybody, for putting this together. Thank you, everyone, despite it being Ramadan, for being tuned with us. And thank you for your support to be our member. If you're not a member, please feel free to engage with our office to see how we can assist you to get your corporate objectives aligned and make sure we maximize your reach and coverage, not only within the UAE, but in more than 130 countries within the ICC global chapters. Thank you, everybody, and I hope to see you again in our upcoming webinar.
That is
Thank you,
very
everyone. Wonderful.
great.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
for the teamwork.
Thanks.